Greetings my friends, Top Hat here, and today I'd like to talk about giving and receiving criticism. This is going to be a sort of part 2 to another commentary I made a little while back. It's not exactly a continuation of it, but the themes of the two discussions are very similar, so if you enjoy this video, please check the video description, check out the other video, I'm sure you'll like it too. But back on track, all too often I see friends or lovers getting into arguments due to party A offering constructive criticism to party B, only for party B to take it as an insult. Then B becomes offended by A and makes a snide retort to A. A gets offended because they were only trying to help B, and now in their eyes B is attacking them for no reason, and it just goes downhill from there. So how do you avoid this situation? Well, let's discuss that. First way to cope with criticism is to accept that nothing you do will ever be perfect, and that there's nothing wrong with that at all. It's no reason to not try your best at something, of course. It's just that perfection is more or less unobtainable by humans, so everything we do can always be done better in some way. Just do the best you can. Some people think that's negative, but for me personally, I think that's a really exciting concept, because if everything can always be improved, then that means life can always get better. If perfection can be reached, then stagnation can also be reached. So personally, I think it's a very positive idea that things can always get better. And if things can always improve, they can get better. So another thing is it's important to realize that you're not always correct in your assumptions of someone's intentions. This is a big one. Another thing is that it's important to realize that you're not always correct in your assumptions of someone's intentions. Just because you thought someone was attacking you doesn't mean that they intended it as such. They could have possibly miscommunicated, or maybe even you misunderstood. So in some cases it can be a good idea to give people the benefit of the doubt. But back to the earlier discussed example, let's talk about that from the perspective that you are party A trying to help out party B. So before you try to offer anyone constructive criticism, you should probably try to figure out if they, or B as I'll refer to them, even want to hear your criticism. As you're probably already quite aware, a fair amount of people want to do things their way and will simply get offended if anyone does anything besides pat them on the back. Personally, I think it's foolish to tune out everything that points to the fact that you're not perfect due to how much good advice will be wasted, but how you take external input is your prerogative. There's rarely a time we can change the ways of others, so back on topic, how can you tell if someone wants to be told that they're doing great or they want to be told what they could do better? One easy rule of thumb is to ask yourself if what you're about to comment on is something they want to become better at doing. Consider a friend who asks you to take a look at their painting. If they're painting for fun just because they feel like it one day and aren't really serious about painting at all, then you probably don't need to start telling them that they should not have put the horizon across the center of the canvas and instead should put it at the 1/3 or 2/3 line. However, if they are creating a piece they would like to enter into a contest, then you probably should tell them that the shading under the table needs to be a bit darker, or that, hey, that's really nice, but if you added a little red to that sunset, I think it'd look fantastic. Of course, this rule of thumb doesn't always work, but if it doesn't, that could be due to party B's personality or your delivery. Which brings to the next way to tell if you should offer advice or pat on the back. This is going to sound silly, but just ask yourself if party B is lazy. Do they just want to do what they want to do and expect everyone to praise their endeavors even if they're subpar? Or do they always strive for excellence and are willing to put in the extra effort? For example, I make these commentaries for my viewers. I don't have a ton of spare time, but I choose to put them into videos, so I want to make sure that the time isn't completely wasted creating subpar content. I'd like my videos to be at least decent. So if you have any criticism for me, leave me a comment. Back on topic of giving criticism, as I'm sure you've heard before, and any good raconteur can confirm, it's all in the delivery. This definitely holds true when giving constructive criticism. Even if you give criticism to a receptive person in a situation where they genuinely want criticism, if your delivery is off, they'll take it as an insult and you'll get into a confrontation. So how should you give criticism then? Well, this depends on the personality of the person you're talking to, and I can't give tailored advice to that person you're talking to in particular, so you'll have to use your own judgment. I can give some generalized advice, however. The most common and effective way to give criticism is to soften the blow, so to speak. Just start with a compliment and try to maintain a positive tone. You could say, your essay is really good, but... And the compliment, as you could guess, is designed to make party B think of you as a friend before you hit them with the idea that you don't think what they did is perfect. It's like the concept of setting a good first impression. If you want to make yourself seem like a friend or ally at first, they'll take your criticism as an attempt at you being helpful. Also, offer a solution to the problem you mention in your criticism if you can. If you offer a solution, people take it that you care and you're genuinely trying to help them fix the problem. If you just state a vague problem, they'll think you unhelpful and a negative Nelly. If you can't think of a specific solution, make it clear that you want to try to help think of a solution, but you just can't think of one immediately. Say something like, I like the direction you're going in by adding that, but it just needs something maybe more, try and think of something. Notice the difference between these two comments. Thanks for making me this sandwich. It's really good, but I think it needs some salt, or, it's bland. This concept is called tone setting. Tone setting is an idea you can apply to far more than just giving criticism, like opening a speech with a joke to set a lighthearted, fun mood. A compliment sets the tone. With the compliment, it's a positive tone. Without the compliment, and just starting off with your criticism, it sets a negative tone. People tend to respond equally with what kind of tone they detect. Positive tone solicits a positive response, a negative tone solicits a negative response. The first tone construed often sets the tone for the rest of your statement, so that's why it's usually good to start with the compliment. It doesn't have to be a compliment, though. Anything you can think of to set a positive tone. It's curious to me how conditioned most people seem to be to base the reception of new information largely on whether they perceive the one giving advice as an ally or opponent. I think whether or not new information is useful should depend as much on the information itself as your perception of the person giving it. I think it's still important to attempt to analyze the intentions of the person giving the information to be able to recognize deceit, but as I've explained above, you should still critically analyze all new information, even if you don't like the person offering the information. After all, as I mentioned, your perception is the one giving the information could be incorrect. Your perception of the one giving the information could be incorrect. You can also better recognize the intentions of a person by really thinking about the information they give. For example, if someone's stories don't add up or just don't make sense, that can be the best way to realize they're lying, even if they seem genuine or unhelpful at first. Of course, some people are bothered by the I like it, but approach, perhaps because they hear it so often or think it sounds hypocritical, patronizing, or whatever else they can come up with. So it might be a worthwhile endeavor to come up with a creative way to set a positive tone while offering others constructive criticism. In this case, if you can be positive and helpful without starting off with a compliment, and make sure not to come across as patronizing, you can often give criticism without sparking a confrontation. Now, if you're in the position of being the person receiving the criticism, the advice is a lot easier. Don't let your pride make you overreact. I guess there is a lot more to it than that, and well, the other commentary I mentioned at the beginning of this video talks a lot more about how to deal with insults and criticism, and I guess would cover anything I could summarize here, so check the video description to find a link where you can check out that video. But anyway, you can't really control how someone delivers criticism to you. You can only control how you react to it. Well, I guess that's not entirely true. If the other person offering the criticism is a friend, family member, coworker, or whatever, you can, politely comment that you didn't appreciate a certain aspect of how they attempted to offer criticism. But, interestingly enough, this puts you back into the position of being the one offering criticism, and then what I've previously mentioned throughout this video applies. So, I've tried to keep this commentary a bit on the short side, compared to my previous commentaries anyway, so I guess that covers all I wanted to talk about. I hope that what I've discussed here has given you some new information to think about on the topic of feedback, and if you have any topics you'd like me to talk about in a future video, leave me a comment. If you have any questions or criticism for me, let me know in a comment. If you just want to vaguely say I did a good or a bad job, you can still let me know. I'd rather hear what you did or didn't like, but I still like to hear from y'all regardless. But thank you for listening, and have a good one.